Well, I guess it's my turn to chime in on the recent controversy that happened yesterday. Alexander Povetkin recently tested positive for Meldonium, aka Maldronate. This is a drug that is used to treat coronary artery disease. It's supposed to increase the size of the blood vessel and therefore improve blood flow. And as we all know, that with increased blood flow comes increased oxygen and therefore gives an athlete more stamina and helps him with his endurance throughout an athletic competitive event. Now, this drug was recently added to WADA's banned substance list in January of 2016. So this drug has not been on the list very long, but in the short time that it has been on the list, if you go down and you look at all these athletes that have tested positive recently, and they're all based in Eastern Europe, primarily the Ukraine and Russia, and it's been debated whether or not this drug really has performance enhancing abilities. So I guess that's why it took so long to have them put it on the banned substance list. But you have to ask yourself, all these athletes that have competed in endurance sports like biathlons, figure skating, basically speed skating, tennis, and even the 2016 Russian hockey team, the IIHF World Championships, the whole Russian team, or not the whole team, excuse me, but the whole Russian team had to be replaced with an 18 under 18 ice hockey team because there were multiple players on that Ice Hockey Federation of Russia team that tested positive for this drug. So you have to ask yourself, do all these athletes have coronary artery disease? Why would they be taking this drug? There has to be some type of benefit. I can't say for sure because I don't know a ton about the drug, and obviously I'm not a doctor, or I'm not a scientist, or I'm not a chemist, so I don't know, the logistics of how this drug works or the intricacies of how this drug works, but you have to ask yourself, why are all these athletes taking it? Again, do they all have coronary artery disease? So that's neither here nor there. But the big question here is whether or not this fight will take place next week on May 21st. Now, the WBC has announced that they're going to add VADA testing to their protocol in title fights. And they announced this back in August of 2015. Because before, the drug testing was left up to the boxing commission in that respective state. So it was up to the state athletic boxing commission to basically carry out the drug testing protocol. But with this recent news back in August of the WBC adopting VADA as part of their protocol for title fights, we're going to have to really see if they're going to step in and stop this fight. Because we've seen other athletes test positive. Eric Morales test positive for clenbuterol in his rematch with Danny Garcia, and the fight still took place because the athletic commission supersedes, the third party drug testing agency. But as I said, now that the WBC supposedly is partnering up with VADA, we're going to have to see what they do. Mauricio Suleiman said that he's going to investigate the situation, and we should have an answer by the end of today, which is Saturday right now. So I'm really interested to see if the WBC is going to respect this decision, or what they're going to do, if they're actually going to cancel this fight because of what happened, or if there is some type of rule, in the sanctioning body where the fighters can still agree to fight regardless of the result of the drug test. So that's going to be interesting to see if they're going to step in and what they're going to do and what the repercussions are going to be for this failed drug test. But again, there's an investigation, but you have to ask yourself, all these Eastern European athletes, these Russian athletes, these Ukrainian athletes, is it a coincidence that they're all taking the same substance and they're all in endurance type sports? There's got to be something. There's got to be some type of connection here. So I guess the Nevada does do a B sample testing. So I don't know, how long that's going to take, but I don't think this is a coincidence. Again, all these other athletes, the majority of them were suspended. They were punished. They were not allowed to compete. And some of the results of the findings, it says unknown here, so I don't know, what the repercussions have been in those instances. But quite a few of these athletes that have tested positive for this drug were suspended and were not able to compete. So again, big question is, will this fight go on? And another big question is, will the WBC step in and respect VADA's decision if VADA decides that, to say and comes up with the conclusion that, yeah, he definitely tested positive with the B sample, and it is what it is. So we're going to have to wait and see. That's the big question here. But, this is crazy. Again, I think a lot of athletes are taking PEDs in the sport. I just think that there's ways to get around it, and I'm not sure if you're ever going to stop this, but it's kind of crazy that Povetkin, knowing that this is a VADA-tested event, would not be a little bit more, careful or, intelligent enough to know, hey, I'm being tested, so I got to watch what I'm putting in my body. Because I'm sure we're going to hear excuses like, oh, I didn't know, or I had an injury or something like that. But if you really look at the sport, people are concerned with athletes taking PEDs in boxing because, hey, you know what? This is a contact sport. People can get hurt in this sport, and they look at it as mostly of added punching power. But it's really most of the athletes that take these drugs. They're looking for an edge in terms of endurance and stamina because you're fighting a 12-round fight, and athletes want to maintain their level of conditioning throughout the whole course of the fight. So, and a lot of these boxers, obviously they have to make weight, so they're not really looking to bulk up and take steroids for added strength or added size, because that's what bodybuilders take steroids for, and that's kind of counterproductive in the sport of boxing. So a lot of these athletes are taking these drugs for endurance reasons, and you look at athletes who move up in weight, but they're still maintaining their level of conditioning, and they're actually throwing more punches, some of them, in the higher weight class as opposed to the weight class they previously campaigned in. So you have to ask yourself, what are these athletes really taking the drug for? And I'm explaining to you that I think it's mostly for endurance, mostly for recovery. So I guess my point is, if you're not a big puncher, these drugs are not going to make you a big puncher per se. I think it's just going to allow you to maintain that level of effectiveness from to later in the fight at the same level that you had earlier in the fight if you're a boxer. So it is what it is. Povetkin was already a pretty decent puncher, so I just think that obviously this would have helped him maintain that level of power in the later rounds. That was probably the point of him taking the drug. So I guess my point is, Paulie Malignaggi is not going to take steroids and all of a sudden start knocking people out. That's just my opinion. But again, that's all I got to say for now. Until next time, Beavis out. And once again, thank you for watching. Peace.